Good evening, race fans. Welcome back once again. This is the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars Championship. This is the penultimate round of Season 3. We are here tonight at Sandown International Raceway for what will no doubt be an absolutely edge-of-your-seat encounter as we see a mini enduro this evening with the drivers set to face 200 kilometers of intense racing. Strategy, tyre management and consistency will absolutely be the key tonight for these drivers in their fight for victory. And this track, being renowned for its fast straights, its heavy braking zones and its highly technical sections, will be sure to challenge even the very best among the field. But of course tonight, my name is Jared Cole, here from Simple Racing Broadcast. I'm joined once again by Josh Harris in the commentary booth, who brings, as always, his wealth of knowledge and his passion for racing. And it's always great to have him alongside me to call all of the action. Mr. Harris, welcome back to the booth.
Thanks, Jared. Very exciting to be here. Loving being back in Australia. A little bit of summer sun after a bit of time over in the Northern Hemisphere on the ASR circuit. And what a racetrack to come home to. I'll give you the red hot tip, Jared. You draw this place on a piece of paper, it looks kind of boring. I reckon that this is one of the best racetracks in Australia. The challenge that it presents is only the only word that you can use to describe it is unique. It seems very simple when you think about it. 2 long straights, a couple of squiggles at the end of each of those straights, but I'll fill you in right now. Piecing a lap together here is pretty difficult. Piecing 65 laps together here tonight, all nice and neat and tidy is going to be a challenge. So these guys are going to have a whole heap of fun, and we are going to have just as much fun watching it and talking about it.
Now, you speak, of course, from reasonably recent and perhaps even slightly bitter experience with a Sandown 200 of your own. It was only last week, indeed, that you were racing 65 laps of Sandown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and to be fair, it was probably one of the most fun races that I've had this year. It goes really quickly. So we've talked a couple of times, Jared, throughout this ASR season about racetracks that are really busy and you never get a chance to rest and reset and think about your racetrack. Your race, and this is not one of them. 2 beautiful long straights. It's almost cathartic to race here, in my opinion. Lots of time to think about what you're doing and make plans and just be ready to strategize your way through the race. A minute 7 on a fast lap. A minute 10 race pace, depending on your tires and maybe where in the field you sit. So the laps tick off really nice and quickly, but quite a long percentage of that is just chilling out on the straights and strategizing. So I think that it's an incredibly fun place to race, and you're absolutely right. Just over a week ago, Jared, I did 65 laps here myself. Very similar format. So these guys have got 2 compulsory pit stops with an 80% fuel capacity tonight in their tank. So it's going to be interesting. They have enough fuel on board, Jared. I've done the math. They do have enough fuel on board to 1 stop, but obviously they have those 2 CPS. So a lot of strategy to play tonight as to how they do this. There is a pretty simple strategy of get the 35 or 32 laps out of the way. And attempt to 1 stop it, with maybe a dive into pits under safety car, just for a set of tyres, or try and do 3 stints of 22 laps. Keep your tyres as fresh as possible, minimise your refueling time each time, and break it up into nice even stints. So no doubt there's going to be a mix of strategy tonight. That's one of the things that we love about ASR is it's not just a cookie cutter strategy across the whole field. There is a couple of ways to skin this cat, and I think that you're going to see a number of different strategies used.
Absolutely, I have no doubt, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing just what the teams do employ here tonight, because as you said, there's a lot of ways to get to the end of 65 laps here at Sandown. And look, right there with you, I think the 2 straights on this circuit are absolutely times where you can almost switch the brain off, but at either end of those 2 straights are honestly some of the most terrifying corners I think I've ever put a supercar around. In particular, the end of that back straight, it's high speed and you've got to commit without actually being able to see the corner before you tip in. It's really challenging, isn't it?
It is very challenging, and I think that we talk pretty fondly in this country about Dandenong Road, turn 9, possibly 10, depending on how you count your numbers. But at the back of the back straight, turn 6 is up over a rise, as you said, Jared. Very fast, 5th gear, 4th gear corner, usually in the race. You've really got to tuck into that inside apex, but then it's actually a surprisingly big drop from turn 6 all the way through down to Dandenong Road. And I can assure you, Jared, and for all of our viewers at home that are watching tonight, you are back on the throttle 100% as you climb up over the curbs through 7 and 8. And then a very tricky braking corner on the way into Dandy Road. You are turning the whole way through the braking zone, as well as trying to arrest a whole heap of speed, from somewhere in the vicinity of 180, 190 k's all the way back down to 75, 80. So it's a big stop. It's downhill. You're turning. You've just climbed up over some curbs. It's a very challenging part of the racetrack, but I think that if you ask around racers in this country, Jared, it's one of our favourite.
Absolutely. It comes with a lot of history and certainly a very fond place in the hearts of many a V8 supercar fan over the years. Before we do go and check out qualifying, because of course it changed tonight, we're not going with 2 laps of qualifying, 2 solo laps over 10 minutes tonight. It will be 20 minutes of open qualifying. You can see the cars heading out onto track now. We'll take a look at some of the action in just a moment as they head on their outlap, but let's talk about the championship standings at the beginning of this evening. And at this stage, we said it last week, it's going to take something short of a miracle to really keep Van der Kraan from wrapping this one up for the season. He has a commanding lead over Jason Spriggs. Dean Logsdale finds himself about the same distance back in P3. In fact, Logsdale and Varga are probably the 2 most likely to be battling for any change in the podium at this stage. Only 2 rounds to go, including this evening. I don't think there's much hope of anyone catching Van der Kraan right now, is there, Josh?
Look, potentially not, Jared, but I guess, tonight's the classic example of a long race. There is only one race tonight, so if Matt Van der Kraan is involved in an incident tonight, it could very well bury him at the back of the pack and really hurt him. So there's still all to play for with this field. Obviously, we're out over 100 points now, which is huge, but it's not over until the fat lady sings. And if I was, certainly Jason Spriggs or even potentially Dean Logsdale, I would definitely be putting in my absolute best case tonight, because there is always the possibility around a place like this. Accidents at Sandown, Jared, happen to have pretty dire consequences. So if Matt Van der Kraan is involved in something, it has the potential to turn the championship upside down straight away.
Absolutely. As we see the drivers out on track, let's go down and check out some of the action. We might start with the man himself, Matt Van der Kraan. He's out on his first hot lap right now, and we will start to get a feel for just who's going to be fastest here tonight in qualifying. It's always tricky, right, with the endurance races. The qualifying doesn't really feel like it makes a huge difference, given you've got so many Ks still ahead of you. As a driver going through qualifying for an event like this, what are you really trying to get out of qualifying here?
You are absolutely trying to start as far up the field as you can. I'm just having a look, Jared. Tonight we've got somewhere in the vicinity of 30 odd cars. I can't count quite that quickly. But if you are at the back of that, there's a number of challenges. Obviously, we've talked all season about how hard these cars are to passing. There actually isn't, as Matt Van der Kraan has a huge slide there out of turn 4 and has to abort his lap. There's not a huge number of passing opportunities here. There is a couple, and there's a couple of really good ones, but there's also a couple that really lull you into this false sense of security and make you think that you can get a pass done, and before you know it, there's contact between the 2 cars and you're both in the fence. So you do want to be at the front in this qualifying. The other thing is, as I've just said, plenty of people, who will try and make passes tonight, Jared, that aren't going to come off, and there's going to be an accident. if you are at the front, you have the absolute best chance of avoiding all of those shenanigans. So probably the last place you want to be tonight, Jared, is buried in the mid-pack, because that is where the racing is particularly willing, and that is where your risk is probably, at its highest.
Absolutely, and we're talking about this track being a bit of a favourite, as we see there. Darren Walden just taking a little bit of an excursion through the grass as he tries to improve his time from P21. This being a favourite track for a lot of these drivers, have a look at some of the times coming in and just how close the top end of qualifying is already. Dean Logsdale and Trav Hunt swap positions again, with less than a tenth of a second separating them right now. Earlier, it was about 0.01 separating them. So very, very closely packed at the top end of this field. Hunt, Logsdale, Vanderkruijm, Thomas, Jason Spriggs, Damien Cairns, Jamie McKnight, all within half a second of each other across the top 7. It's going to be an intensely competitive night, and strategy is going to form such a massive part of deciding the winner here at Sandown this evening.
Yeah, and Joe, to be honest, this just highlights my point that you really want to be out the front. We've now got 16 cars separated by 9 tenths. Obviously that makes it very easy to gain a couple of positions in qualifying, but that shows you how closely matched these drivers are. This is a track that, while being technical in nature and very easy to make a mistake, they're because of the lack of, I guess the lack of corners, to be honest, there's only a couple of genuine braking zones. The times are incredibly close, and that will make it even more challenging to pass tonight. There will be cars that are genuinely faster than those in front of them, but not enough to affect a pass. And that is where this starting position is absolutely critical. If you're not in, I'll call it out now. I reckon if you're not in the top, if you're not in the top 6 or 7, if you're not on the first 3 rows, I don't think that you're in a realistic shot to win this race.
Wow,
provided that the leaders don't do something silly and take themselves out. If a car in the top 3 rows finishes the race, then no one behind them can win.
Wow, that is a big call, and we're not even into lap 1 yet. We will see how your prediction goes out. Keep that in mind tonight, folks. We're looking for a winner from the top 3 rows. We see one of the Quantum Tint Solutions, Quantum Racing entries spun around there at Pertec Corner. Not unusual to see that happen either, is it, Josh?
No, absolutely not. There's a couple of cases on this track, Jared, where you absolutely expect to see people facing backwards, and that is the entrance to Dandenong Road, so down the hill at the end of the back straight, and on the way out of turn 4 as you enter the back straight. There's a couple of bumps there, and if you do climb up over that ripple strip that we just saw on screen, it very much invites you to turn around and face the other way. And of course, probably the other key point to watch for action is right here in between turn 2 and 3. A couple of different curbs to climb up over, and if you've got cars anywhere around you, it's incredibly easy to make a little mistake and end up pointing the way that you're not meant to.
You take a look right throughout the field. Huge representation from both the Quantum Racing, Quantum Tin Solutions team, and of course the West Automotive Angry Birds racing team this evening. A lot of their drivers in amongst the field. It feels like they've almost doubled their numbers, or maybe we're just seeing a lot of them here in this qualifying session. But of course they are out there on track, and Matt Vanderkruijm leading the way from Angry Birds has reclaimed his number 1 spot. But I tell you what, there is nothing in it. 0.02 to Trav Hunt, 0.03 to Dean Logsdale. It's crazy to be talking about this, but Jeff Thomas almost looking slow, being a tenth behind, almost 2 tenths behind. You know what? You might be on the money with that top 6 prediction, but I think the 2 compulsory pit stops are going to play their part here this evening. We've got a little while yet to go. We've still got about another 12 minutes of open qualifying, so while we check out everything that's going on here, something worth us mentioning, Josh, is of course the Alliance Sim Racing Endurance Championship, which kicks off in just about a week and a half's time. So the first race of the 3 for this year will be, of course, Sunday the 9th of March, I believe it is. 6th of March. I may have my numbers upside down. But in any case, it is only a week and a bit away at this point. It is, of course, March 9th, the Phillip Island 600, and that will be 135 laps of Phillip Island. That's going to be a really punishing circuit to take on endurance length. It is going to be a two-driver team format, but even so, I mean, doing 65 plus laps apiece around Phillip Island is no easy feat. It's going to take significant focus from both drivers in every team to make that around in one piece.
It is, and what a fantastic opportunity for these guys to get a little mini enduro under their belt tonight. Talk about whetting the appetite, not only ours, Jared, and all of our viewers, but also the drivers. They're going to love sinking their teeth into a mini enduro, let's call it tonight. But the Phillip Island 600 next weekend is incredibly cool. I think it's not typically somewhere that people think of when they think endurance racing. It's an incredibly challenging circuit. I raced there in a Gen3 a couple of weeks ago, and I can tell you now that that place is an absolute tyre killer, and the concept of having to put in a really long stint is intimidating, to say the least. And I am very, very excited to be a part of that broadcast, Jared, and get to see how all of not only these guys, but just quietly seeing a few names that I recognise from other series starting to appear in the ASR Discord server as they prepare to get their registration in. So I think we're going to see a pretty interesting mix of both people or names that we're familiar with here at ASR, but maybe some names that we're not so familiar with as well.
And I am very keen to see that. You and I have both seen a couple of Gen 3 series of late, and not surprising given they are new onto the iRacing service, having only been released in December, but also very popular, of course, in Australia. It's hard to understate just how popular they actually are here as a racing series, and so it's not at all surprising to see a couple of different series running them. I think it will bring just a whole different level, apart from the team driving approach that it will be for that enduro. A lot of these guys very much used to just managing themselves around a racetrack and being able to make their own decisions. Having to balance that against a teammate that you're swapping in and out of the vehicle with always adds a different element. But you'll also, you'd usually find that these guys have been racing with the same names pretty consistently, so they'll be very familiar with perhaps some of the weaknesses, some of the strengths of the compatriots that they are on track with most of the time. You start to introduce drivers from other series who are just as quick, but completely foreign to a lot of the, let's call them household names here at ASR. And I think it's going to provide a very interesting challenge for these drivers to just adapt to having some different people on track with them. I'm really looking forward to it.
No, I am too, Jared. You make a really good point, and actually, I'll give you the credit that you deserve. You've made two very good points there. The first one,
well, that's it. I'm done for the moment. I'm packing up and going
home. That's it. Retire. No, Jared, you're absolutely right that new names coming in will give these guys a bit of a shake-up and a bit of a challenge. And just quietly, a couple of the names that I have seen appear are definitely not slow. I do expect them to be, competitive, but I also know that they're hard racers. They're going to be signing up because they want to win. They're certainly not signing up to make up numbers, and that's going to be a huge cat among the pigeons. And then the other thing is that supercars are inherently single driver cars, and we all set them up so differently to each other. Even in a team where we share setups, inevitably every single week you end up with a base setup that then is tweaked for each of the drivers. So there'll be a driver 1 version and a driver 2 version, a driver 3 version, because it makes it comfortable for them. But these guys, for probably the first time, are going to have to set up their car, and they're going to have to drive their car with some known limitations in it. They are going to have to compromise together to find the way that no car will be perfect. Basically, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and that may reveal some weaknesses. The guys that we see up the front in ASR every single week, do they remain up the front when they have to drive a car that's chock-a-block full of compromises to make sure that their co-driver can drive it?
Not to mention having to do it over the sort of distances we're talking for this endurance championship. It's certainly going to be interesting. What has been interesting already is we see a bit of support for Team AJR. Luke Orman joins us again in the chat. Always good to have you back, Luke. This different qualifying format, I don't know if you've been watching this timing tower as we've been talking about the endurance championship, but let's come back to Sandown for just a moment. This longer format qualifying is actually bringing a couple of names into the mix at the top end of the field that I don't think we've actually seen qualify so far up. Now, whether that's a familiarity with this track for these drivers, or whether it is a result of them being able to just find their groove a little more over a slightly longer qualifying session, I'm not sure. But Damon Fisher are currently holding pole. So Trav Hunt and Van der Kraan have swapped, I reckon, about 5 times, 6 times in the time it's taken us to talk through that endurance championship info. And Damon Fisher out of nowhere has gone, yeah, thank you very much, I'll run a 107.8 and pip you both with just over 5 minutes left in this session.
I'm probably willing to bet, Jared, that those different names is being able to settle into your qualifying run. I know a lot of people, and I'm definitely one of them, that like to run a race run before they qualify, because it just really helps them get in the groove. And it is so easy in these cars to make the slightest of mistakes. And to be honest, this track is probably a perfect example where there are so few genuine braking zones that if you make a small mistake, there's not many places to sort of make that up. And a lot of the tracks that we race at are very much the same. So by our 2-lap lone qualifying, the guys who are really good at that will shine, and there'll be a number of people who need to get into that 3rd, 4th, 5th qualifying lap, because they might go out and it takes them a lap and a half to phase their tyres in, and then that only gives them that second lap in the 2-lap qualifying to get it done. Also, just quietly between you and me, Jared, if you can position yourself nicely on the track, there is a little bit of benefit on a track like this with 2 beautiful long straights that you can sit in a slipstream, and the ability to qualify with people around you, whilst it has some challenges with making sure that you've got space and you can definitely trip over each other. There is definitely some little handy bits and bobs to be able to sneak some time out of other drivers by using their slipstream. And Jared, we're on board here with Rick Vigor, and can I just point out we're coming up to one of the best parts of the track here. So up over the top of the hill, he's going to go down 2 gears. He's going to make a liar of. He's going to try and hold in 5th, which is impressive. Huge big run up over that curve. You have to hit that curve every single lap, and then down here into Dandy Road, you have to hit the inside curve. You nearly always hit the outside curve. Another really quick short run up to a very, very complex right-left to end the lap. It looks pretty easy, but it's very hard to get that done every time with pace on. As you see there, Rick bails into the pits with just under 3 minutes to go. He absolutely knows that he has the ability to quickly chuck a set of tyres on that and probably get round and have one last go at putting together a lap.
And as we've been talking, the lead has changed again. Van der Kraan betters Damon Fisher by just 1/100th of a second. This is so tight right now. We've got the top 20 drivers within a second of each other. This is going to be an absolutely epic 65 laps of racing here at Sandown as we enter the last couple of minutes of qualifying. Just over 2 minutes left in this. So we'll see who manages to set a couple of final quick laps. You see a lot of drivers on their out lap now, looking to put in one last-ditch attempt to improve their starting position. Tim Lawson's, of course, taking notes on the lines around this track. I just watching these guys throw it, particularly down through to Dandenong Road. I've been trying. I've really been trying, Josh, to put together a quick lap around here in a Gen3 supercar, and that whole series of corners off that back straight, absolutely terrifying every time.
Yeah, it's a section of road, and I would describe that the way to get through there fast is a mixture of flow and finesse, and importantly bravery. Because when you're halfway through turn 6, you're still at the very top of 4th gear, and the next thing to do is we see two of the Quantum Tint solution cars come together in between turn 3 and 4. So easy to do there when you're pushing. But back to my point, Jared, as you come down the hill here and you have to be hard on the throttle while you're climbing over curbs, and then knowing that you're going to have to brake at the very last minute, it takes a level of bravery and at the very least commitment to be able to bury your foot back in the throttle of a 600 horsepower car when you are hurtling towards a centre.
Terrifying. That's all I've got. It's absolutely terrifying, and I just cannot fathom doing that at that sort of pace, lap after lap after lap, as we see Gary Buckland just pushes a little too hard over that very aggressive curb through turn 3, and certainly another good way to step the rear end out. It's, for such a simple looking track, there's so many ways to get caught out here. These guys know the track incredibly well. We're down to the last 15 odd seconds now of qualifying. It looks as though Van der Kraan's going to have this wrapped up for pole position, but a couple of contenders still out there. We're not seeing a whole lot of green, and certainly no purple coming up in the times at the bottom of your screen. So it looks as though we might have our qualifying order set, but it will depend on if anyone can get in that last few seconds of qualifying time. I believe that iRacing is going to be kind enough to allow people to finish off their hot laps. Because we only have a one race format tonight, you are afforded the opportunity to finish the lap if you're on it. And can I just make the point for the people at home? Imagine being in Damon Fisher's shoes and knowing that the difference between second and first, what you needed to find around a lap that was taking you 67 seconds to complete. You had to find 0.01 of a second in improvement. These gaps are unfathomably tight, and particularly for people, those of us involved in motorsport, maybe we take it for granted a little bit around these these differences in time. But just take a second to appreciate the fact that the top 3 are separated by just on half a tenth of a second. That's not even a tenth or half a second. Half a tenth, Jared, across 3 people is very, very difficult to wrap your head around. Yeah, what do you even do to try and deal with that? It blows my mind. It really does. We're about to go to the grid, so let's get ready to talk about the way this is all finished up and the way that these cars will be lining up on track this evening as we wait for the last of the drivers to clear the track. You can see, actually looks like Scott Rankin and Jay McKnight, there we go, have just left the track now, and so we will take a look at the grid for this evening. Qualifying is done and dusted, and the drivers will stack up in pretty well the order that we saw them just before we jumped to the blimp again. Just waiting on the last of the results to come through there. We've got a warm-up session underway, and waiting on the grid coming through from race control. It is not showing at the moment, so let's see if we can force things along. It does look like it's going to make us wait until the start of the race, which is still 5 minutes away. It's almost disappointing. I was all amped up for that, but let's take a look at the qualifying results, which will tell us about the grid anyhow. So Matt van der Kraan out in front, and really just barely managing to hang on to that pole position after swapping the leads so many times. Team AJR, huge representation for them, 2nd and 4th from Damon Fisher and Dean Logsdale. So an outstanding opportunity for them to pick up a few points here tonight. Trav Hunt from JWM Sim Sports is in there in P3. You've got Spriggs and Cairns in the 3rd row. So we're already at the point where, Josh Harris, you reckon you've got the winner down to just 6 names at this point.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I put the little caveat there that, of course, incidents, can happen, especially on a track like this. But my opinion is that if any of those front 6 guys make it cleanly to the end, There's just it's too far back. If you're not on the third row with the pace that these guys set and how close this race is, you just won't haul down 6 cars and make it all the way to the lead. However, one thing that we know about these cars, they are mighty unpredictable, Jared, and it's very, very easy to make a mistake. So anything can happen. But if I'm on those front 3 rows, the goal is to finish, because if I finish, I have a mighty good result. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so that's what we're holding you to then. I'm not going to let you back out of that just on the basis of incidents, mate. No, it's not going to be getting away with it that easy. We'll take a look through the rest of the grid though. Chad Viggar and Jeff Thomas up there in 7th and 8th, and the top 10 rounded out by Jim Capronis and Jamie McKnight. Peter Sattler and Matthew Stoyles will be behind them. James Hardy and Scott Rankin just a little further back. Then Rick Viggar and Simon Haynes lining up alongside each other in 15th and 16th. Stephen Varga a long way back. And look, you say a long way back, he's in 17th at all of 0.73 off Matt Vanderkraan's pole time. It's still put me in a headspin here. Gary Buckland in 18th, right at the bottom of the list that we're looking at right now, and he's still within 3/4 of a second. In fact, we have to go back even further. Troy Sippel and Todd Martin in 19th and 20th, and Dylan Sippel and Peter Latham. And Peter Latham, the first of the drivers who's more than a second away from Matt Vanderkraan's time, all the way back in 22nd out of the 29 names to record a time here this evening. Just phenomenal. Dane Nothdurft, Joseph Granshaw, Darren Walden, Craig Rose, then Michael Hayes and Philip Marsh, Anita Buckland, the last of the drivers to have set a time here tonight. And for all of these drivers, bar the last 3 or 4 there, to be within 2 seconds of the lead in a field as large as this, it's pretty phenomenal, Josh.
It is. It's super impressive. 21 drivers within a second. It shows the quality of this field, and it's going to be a fantastic race. I noticed in our broadcast chat, Jared, Tim Lawson making comment about tyre life tonight. Obviously, we've got a big long race, 65 laps, and what I can tell you to give a bit of insight from my own time around this track just last week. It's actually surprisingly good on tyres, Jared. So really, what we see is sort of 2 laps, maybe 3. At your ultimate peak pace, and then they very quickly drop off over the space of about 3 or 4 laps after that to be about, certainly I found, and in a lot of my teammates in our race last week found that they drop off to about a second slower than your outright max pace, but then they stay there. And it's pretty easy to get through, certainly a 22 lap stint, and even a longer stint. Those tyres really do sit there and not fall off a huge cliff. So there's a little bit of immediate drop off as soon as you fit them, and then I think that we'll see this field settle into a really nice pace, and of course that probably doesn't aid particularly great racing, Jared. It makes it so incredibly hard to pass people, because we don't see the massive tyre drop off and difference in speed with when we come up behind cars with older tyres, and not a huge amount of corners, as I've spoken about, and it just puts us in this position where everyone is doing such similar lap times, and it's fantastic to see really tight, close battles, but it's not necessarily great for a huge amount of passing on every lap.
We're just going to have to wait and see what this race brings. We are just about ready to get underway. Tonight's Sandown 200, as always, brought to you by Quantum Tint Solutions and AA West Automotive. We'll take a look at the grid once more. Vanderkraan and Fisher on the front row, Trav Hunt and Dean Logsdale behind them, then Jason Spriggs and Damien Cairns ahead of Chad Viggar and Jeff Thomas, Jim Capronis and Jamie McKnight rounding out the top 10. Peter Sattler and Matthew Stoyles just outside that top 10 list this evening. Then James Hardy and Scott Rankin behind them ahead of Rick Viggar and Simon Haynes. Stephen Varga and Gary Buckland ahead of Troy Sipple and Todd Martin, rounding out your top 20. Again, separated by this point by only 0.8 of a second. Dylan Sipple and Peter Latham in 21st and 22nd. Then Dane Nothurft and Joseph Granshaw further back. Darren Walden and Craig Rose ahead of Michael Hayes and Philip Marsh. Then Anita Buckland and Lucas Burt will form the final row, with Tim Nicol and Nathan Allen, as always, our safety car drivers. Hopefully not needed for this evening, but I suspect we're going to see them out on track at least once tonight. Let's go down to the track. Let's get ready to get underway here this evening, and our drivers are starting to grid up now. Josh Harris, Matt Vanderkraan finds himself on pole. We know that you give him some clean air out in front and he's going to extend. What do you expect to see here this evening from him?
I really expect to see whatever driver makes it to the end of the first lap in the lead, but it would be a safe bet to expect that to be Matt, and I expect to see a really sensible first 2/3 of this race. I think that it's going to be about managing tyre life, managing fuel use. There is no point in burning up your tyres to run away from the field only to get a safety car. It's a very long race tonight, and I really expect to see just a little bit of sensible race management, get through to the second pit stop, get pitted, get full fuel, or the fuel that you need to get home, a fresh set of tyres, and then really drop the hammer.
All right, bit of strategy play. Look at the glut of quantum racing entries in the middle of the pack there. It's all stacked up there, and it gives you a good view of it right there. Have a look at them all, just absolutely forming the middle of the pack this evening. James Hardy ahead of Simon Haynes, and they're all gathered there in the middle, and we're just going to have to wait and see how we go off the start line as we wait. You're absolutely right. That is interesting, isn't it? Luke Orman just pointing out that Damon Fisher, his spec map, not the usual chrome colour we're used to seeing. I'm not sure what's happened for him there, but anyway, we'll keep an eye on it. We've got a bit of support there for Accelerate Sim Racing. We are just about ready to get underway as we go to starters' orders. We wait on the lights, the revs rise. Matt Vanderkraan looking for a heavy start here. Damon Fisher about to take him as well. And we are go. Green flag, green lights. We are underway here for the Sandown 200, as already we see the cars getting 4 and 5 wide off the start. Vanderkraan out to a promising gap already. Let's see if we make it through turn 1 without incident. And already we've got cars backwards. Scott Rankin's been turned around. One of the Accelerate entries is backwards as well. Just trying to identify who that actually is at the moment. We've got Joseph Granshaw caught up in the back of it. There are cars all over the place. That's Damien Cairns, one of our championship front runners, all the way at the back now with Scott Rankin. So they've got some work to do to catch up. As we see one of the Old Mate and Sons entries turned around there as well. That looks like it might be either Lucas Bird or Gary Buckland further back as well. I tell you what, not the start that some of these drivers would have wanted, but you've got to be glad that you've got so much time up your sleeve in a mini enduro like this, Josh.
Yeah, you do, and you want to settle back into it, but what a typical Sandown mess at turn 1. We saw those cars as soon as the lights go green, they fan out 4 and 5 wide, and it looks amazing. And there is absolutely the space on the run down the main straight to be that wide, but there is simply not enough space in between turn 1 and turn 2. And what ends up happening is everybody funnels into the same the same piece of road, and I don't think that I have seen many races at Sandown, whether it be in iRacing or in real life, Jared, where you don't end up with the car facing backwards on the exit of turn 1, which is a shame. But the field has really now pretty quickly settled into some nose to tail running, and we're going to start to see those battle packs emerge. And I think very quickly we're going to see some people who are, maybe struggling a little bit, or their setup isn't as good in race pace as it was in qualifying, and we're going to start to see some trains build really, really quickly, Jared. It's such an easy track to have those huge big groups of cars, and it's going to be very exciting for us to watch, as it looks like Damon Fisher has made a bit of a mistake down at Dandy Road. It's so simple to do. It's an absolute hotspot tonight. He won't be the last. He's definitely definitely not the first. And unfortunately for him, he's back to fifth. As I believe I just saw an Angry Birds car floating around backwards. It looks like Sattler has had a bit of an incident at the last corner. So it'll be interesting to see what's happened there, Jared. Would not be surprised at all to see a bit of nose-to-tail action on the way through the last corner.
And there is action plenty right throughout this field. It's always a challenge trying to capture it all. We'll go back and we'll take a look at some more of it. You see Darren Walden just getting tangled up in amongst these cars, finding himself well off the line and getting pushed wide by the likes of Todd Martin, Peter Latham on their way through. So they've got a quantum entry. That's Troy Sipple, who finds himself facing backwards in the Mustang. He's going to have to try and get it spun around. That's a really tough spot to find yourself stuck. And then, of course, we've got Sattler now, after that earlier contact, looking to make his way past Joseph Granshaw. They're going to be side by side as they come down the back straight. Who will blink first as they enter the braking zone? Sattler stays on the inside, but just backs out of it. Granshaw barely staying within track limits, almost cuts Sattler's nose off on the way back across. And there's Scott Rankin right behind them, already climbing his way back up through to 23rd after that earlier incident. I tell you what, it's going to be a very, very interesting race as Jason Spriggs goes into the pits now. That is a drive-through penalty for Jason Spriggs. So black flag, and I suspect, there you go, lap 1, turn 1, race control has just advised the drive-through penalty there for that contact at the very start of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate for Spriggs, but these things do happen, and he will get that out of the way and get back about racing. I just want to go back a lap, Jared. A little bit of real respect shown as we went through turn 6. I was geeing up to call an incident with two cars heading through this incredibly fast corner that we're looking at now. But it's good to see a little bit of common sense prevailing. We are so early into this race. Now is not the time to be playing silly buggers, and those guys did a fantastic job at getting through there cleanly. As we do see, more and more of these cars starting to bunch up. And if we think back just a week, Jared, to how quickly we were seeing, huge gaps in between cars at the Red Bull Ring, and we look at it now. Even as we see those times appear, 108.6, 108.4, 108.6, 108.8, these guys are absolutely all on the pace with each other, and there is going to be battle packs all night. I can't wait. I can't believe how quickly the first couple of laps have gone. Action aplenty, considering, Jared, that I have made mention so many times that it's such a difficult place to pass. It might be difficult to pass, but it's certainly not difficult to race close, and you and I probably have the best set of the night.
Absolutely we do, and it's certainly a lot less effort up here than it is behind the wheel of one of these cars as we make our way around Sandown. This is lap 5 of 65, still a long way to go. We see a few pit stops starting to happen. Some of those have been for repairs from some of that earlier rubbing of panels, let's say. Some of them may be looking at a very, very early stop 1 and trying to make it into 2 longer stints for the rest of the night. But we're going to have to see how that strategy all plays out from here. I've just realised that, of course, we have not actually been giving you the audio that we'd usually expect. So now you'll be able to hear those V8 supercars making their way around the track. Tim Lawson absolutely on the money. Matt Vanderkraan is going to be slowed down by lap traffic at the rate he's going. Already a 2-second lead over Trav Hunt. But we'll wait and see if he's gone out too hard too soon. Let's go back and take a look, though, at that very first incident. And this is Damien Cairns off the line, so keep an eye on him. The middle of our screen there gets a bit of contact from the inside, spins him around, and that's where the carnage just sort of unfolds around him. You can see cars being spun all over the place. And we'll go back and we'll take a look at Scott Rankin there and just see if we can catch exactly how he ended up. Take a look on that left-hand side of your screen. Under brakes here, turns in, and actually turns across the nose of Jamie McKnight, and that's been enough to spin him around. Sends the Old Mate and Sons entry wide. Looks like Gary Buckland's had managed to avoid him there. So I think Rankin's probably done that to himself primarily, but he's certainly fighting his way back. Already back up to P20, only 6 places from his starting position, despite finding himself all the way at the end of the tower by the end of turn 1.
Yeah, he did. And, to be fair, by the time that Scotty Rankin arrived on scene there, Jared, everyone was already checking up for the other car that had spun. I do forget who that was. but Cairns is who it was, Jared. But it's an unfortunate incident there for Scotty Rankin. Such a fantastic week last week, and providing us with one of the all-time great sim racing broadcast moments. But it's one of those things that by the time that there's that many cars all trying to check up, unfortunately there's only so much real estate, and there's a lot of people that all want to own their little slice of it. But he's pretty fast. He'll have his head down, and he'll be doing everything he can to move forward. As we do see Joseph Greenshaw with an interestingly redecorated Chevrolet Camaro. Obviously had a bit of an incident there and met a wall, and he has installed some custom engine cooling, Jared.
Yeah, a bit of floating bonnet mounts going on there for a while. He's decided to obviously do away with that, so now an open to atmosphere cooling solution. I don't know how that's going to go for his top speed down the straight, but it shouldn't do too much to slow him down here. We'll keep an eye on his times as we see Michael Hayes under some pretty significant pressure. Peter Latham looking to go up the inside, takes a big look, doesn't make the move at this stage, but just letting him know that he's there. That Shadow Racing entry looking certainly very aggressive in the dark blue chrome and black livery. Right on the back of them though, you've got Todd Martin from Quantum Racing up 3 spots since the start, and there's Scott Rankin in the background already up to P18, so he is on the move back through this field, definitely looking to recover from his earlier start.
Yeah, he is, but of course the problem associated with that is Scotty Rankin is going to be a man on a mission, and it's a long race, and he doesn't have that many sets of tyres. So, it's the potential or the possibility, I guess, that he wears those tyres out prematurely. But it's going to be exciting until he does, Jared. There's certainly a lot of opportunity for him to grab some places with some really good, hard, aggressive racing, and it's going to be exciting to watch him end up towards the next group of cars. As we do jump forward now to be following along with Jeff Thomas with a slightly damaged front end on his Ford Mustang. That has copped a whack at some point and will be hurting a little bit. But obviously, we do see that he's still got plenty of pace. He is up 2. He's into that top 6 that I have bravely put a big circle around. So, he's definitely trying to make his way forward, and he is about to be hunting Damon Fisher down, and he's going to be trying to make a move. I wouldn't be surprised to see him sit here for a couple of laps, Sharon, and really just look to understand where it's going to be and how he's going to get that move done.
Speaking of getting the move done, Scott Rankin is just trading places at the moment. He's side by side with Todd Martin as they're coming to the end of this lap. And it's going to be a very brave move if Rankin can get it done here. It's an extremely aggressive approach to try and take from the outside. He's settled back in for a moment there, though. He was ahead of Todd Martin, so he'll be looking to take him into turn 1 here, I'm sure. Let's keep our eyes on it. There's a couple of battles going on just ahead of these two. You've got Michael Hayes and Peter Latham going out as well. Scott Rankin just backing it off a little, and then under brakes closes that gap all the way up. And this battle for 15th is heating up as well. We've got packs going on up and down through the field, and then a fair bit of separation, you've got to say, here from 15th up to Dane Northdurft. These guys are currently sitting 7 seconds back from Northdurft in 14th. There's quite a bit of spacing, considering that we're only 10 laps in. Really interesting to see just how far apart some of these cars have been spread by some of those early incidents, and it really does make a big difference when you don't have to worry about other drivers around you. When you can just focus on that clean air ahead, it almost makes it a bit easier to go faster. And that's certainly what some of these other drivers will be hoping for. Scott Rankin at the moment certainly being slowed down by the traffic that he's caught up in. His best lap so far a 109.3, last lap a 110.5, so he's a bit off his pace, and he's going to want to get moving here pretty soon, because right behind him is Jason Spriggs. So Rankin goes into the pits. I think he's decided he's not going to hang around and get caught up in that mess anymore. Get one of those pit stops out of the way early, and he will be back out there in no time. Jason Spriggs copped that early drive-through for that initial contact with his teammate Damien Cairns. So he's down 13 spots now in 18th since the start, where he was up in that top 6 you were talking about, Josh. he's going to have to put some work in if he wants to be back in your good books.
He is. He's got a long way to go. But we see the cars in front battling, Jared, and the one of the key reasons that we see these cars end up in beautiful fresh pockets of air is really about the cars around them battling. You are slowed significantly on this track when you start to battle with other cars. We see moves like the one that Scott Rankin put on a couple of laps ago, Jared. I was watching live on my iRacing. He put a fantastic move on down into Dandy Road, and I would have been pretty happy to call that complete. But the other car is able to get drive out of the corner, and they're set up. They're on the inside for the next corner, and you end up battling for these passes. You battle corner after corner after corner, and it significantly slows you down. And we talked a lot in qualifying about just how close these cars are. Everyone is lapping at a really high speed. So as soon as you are, half a second a lap, every lap slower because you're fighting with someone, it can really damage how far away you are to the car in front. So you will often see drivers here at Sandown, Jared, be incredibly aggressive to try and get a pass done because they just can't afford to wait in the pack, and you really need to move to the front of the pack that you're battling as fast as you possibly can, and then just get out of there and get going. I can provide some recent experience, Jared. I was caught up last week, in behind one of the leaders for nearly 10 laps, and just didn't want to get involved in a battle as a lapped car, but I was being held up to the tune of 8/10, but couldn't find a way past, and I finally did get past, and within 5 laps I'd pulled sort of four seconds. It's so easy to break away from the battle pack behind you and get yourself in that nice little pocket of air, but as soon as you do catch up to the battle pack in front, sure enough, you slow back down again, and it takes you a couple of laps to regain it. So I can assure you now, we're on board. We're looking here at the battle for 15th. You've got Latham out in front. I am pretty confident that if you watch this over the next lap or so, Latham will absolutely bolt while these next 3 cars behind him really start to argue with each other. And then if we do see one of those cars emerge to the front of that battle pack, they'll start to chase Latham down, and inevitably what happens is Latham catches the next group in front, and then you catch back up and you start that whole accordion all over again.
Yeah, it's a little repetitive, isn't it? As a driver, you've just got to accept that that's part of racing Gen3 supercars. You can't get a pass done in a single corner. You really do have to make it happen over a number of attempts and over a significant distance a lot of the time. I wanted to ask you a little bit about what we saw in the real world Gen3 supercars and the recent race result. I'm trying to remember, for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was. Cam Waters, I think. Just took that win on the line, and I was watching a really interesting bit of footage, a bit of a review of that, just around side draft and being able to actually slow another driver down through the aero impact that you can have by getting alongside someone. Have you had to play around with how well that might or might not be modelled in iRacing, and do you reckon that's something you can use to your advantage here at Sandown?
Yeah, look, I don't know that it's modelled perfectly, but the side draft is definitely a thing. So there's a couple of tricks to side drafting, though, and to be fair, it's one thing to understand the theory. It's a totally different thing to put that theory into practice, and that is actually that the side draft works when you approach the rear of the car. And as you articulated, Jared, side drafting actually works by slowing the other car down, not by speeding you up. And so you'll see it in NASCAR, obviously probably the best proponents of side drafting in the world. But as you pull up beside the car that you want to side draft off, they will slow down. But if you don't move away from them fast enough, once they become the car in second, then they will actually slow you down. So there's a very neat art to it around approaching from behind, and you get into that side draft, and then you really need to break away from that car to negate the effects on you before you pass them. And we saw Cam Waters execute it perfectly the other night in real life. But what a lot of us, I guess, don't anticipate is just how quickly that slowdown's going to happen, and inevitably what happens is we're still tucked in beside the car when they do slow down, and that then grabs us into the same side draft and we slow down, and you don't see that full effect. So the side draft definitely exists in iRacing, but I'm just going to call out that as amateur racers, we're probably, it's probably not modelled perfectly to real world, and we're probably not necessarily skillful enough to utilise it to its full effect.
The more I learn about this stuff, the more I realise I have no idea about. Josh Harris, thank you so much for that explanation. Luke Allman asking about the starting fuel. Look, it will vary from driver to driver, but the max tank capacity limited to 80% tonight. Josh Harris, your numbers suggest that they can do it as a one-stop strategy, but of course, 2 compulsory pit stops tonight means that the strategy might not be quite that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for everyone's understanding, no set starting fuel, as you said, Jared, an 80% cap on the tank, which is 106.4 litres, so the drivers were free to pick anywhere in that, and they use 3.1 as a rounded up figure, litres per lap, so they're going to get 34 laps out of a tank. So you can definitely do it in one fuel stop. If you're really, as we see, one of the Angry Birds cars, they're having a little bit of difficulty. Rick Vigor made a mistake here between 2 and 3, which has absolutely backed him up into the Quantum Tint Solution cars just behind of Vargs and Haynes, and they are going to have a better run out of 4 through 5 and then up the hill towards 6. Are they brave enough to throw it down the inside at 6? They're absolutely not. Vargs is tucked in there nice and tight. Can he get a run down the hill and make the pass through Dandy Road, or is he content to just sit there and wait and see what happens? He does now appear to have a good run out of Dandy Road as we head towards the final section, and it looks like it's a 2-for-1 deal, Jared, for the Quantum Tint Solution cars. Although Rick Vigor is going to hang tough, and he did just push Haynes a little bit wide. Haynes won't be that upset. He dived straight into the pits to take his first compulsory pit stop, as we see, just those battles that can come out of nowhere at Sandown, Jared, and they're really fantastic to see, as Rick Vigor, I do believe we're still on board with Rick Vigor diving down the inside of I'm not sure who that is, to be honest, because the timing tower that I'm looking at doesn't appear to make sense.
It looks to me like who we've got there. That is one of the Old Man Sons entries, I suspect, in 21st place. That is Gary Buckland. Gary Buckland there.
Oh, Gary Buckland.
Has just come out of the pits, so got caught up right in the middle of this little battle. And at least he'll have the pace to stick with it and not be much of a hindrance. We know he's quick and unfortunately finds himself a lap down at the moment. Matt Vanderkraan goes in, so that gap that he'd built up, he's now gone into pits, as has Jeff Thomas behind him. So we're starting to see the first pit stops happening now. You can see quite a few drivers further back in the field making their pit stops as well. And really the whole lineup at the moment all coming in. Those first 6, 7, 8 drivers all heading in for their first pit stop here at lap 19. So perhaps taking their cue from Matt Vanderkraan. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst idea right now, would it, given his success in the series so far? If you just stick with him, it seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah, it could be. Wow, as one of the Quantum cars, Martin, I think that was it.
That was a very interesting entry to the pits.
Absolutely sends it into the pit lane. I'll be very surprised, Jared, if Martin doesn't have a 40-second hold for speeding in the pits there. But to your point, Jared, the undercut at all tracks in the Gen 3 supercar is huge. You want to be the first to pit. And if you are racing someone and you see that they have pit, you want to dive in very soon afterwards, because it is so easy for them to gain track position over you by just putting in a couple of nice laps on fresh tyres. So I think one of two things, either everyone else has taken their cue from Van der Kram, or we did see a couple of stops, and to be fair, I missed who they were, but we definitely saw a couple of stops the lap before, and I wouldn't be surprised if Van der Kram and everyone else took their cue from someone up the front taking that stop. It's an interesting strategy. I mentioned at the start that one of the key strategy options is a 22 lap, a stint, so 3 22-lap stints across the race. By pitting at lap 19, you've really got yourself out of cycle. You haven't ran along on stint 1. You haven't even made it to that 22. There's going to have to be one stint that's longer, at least, if not 2. And to be fair, Jared, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 different strategies. Neither of them would shock me. Either a nice long middle stint here, saving yourself a lovely set of fresh tyres for the end, or another short stint that is driven by someone diving into the pit lane and everyone else following suit. So, a real opportunity for someone, in that second or third place to be bold on strategy and, dive in another 20 laps time at lap 40. Yes, you've got to do 25 laps to the end, but you absolutely can, and is there someone that's brave enough at lap 40 to dive in, do their pit stop, on the hopes that no one else is brave enough to do it, utilise that undercut, drive to the front, and then defend like crazy when inevitably they're caught towards the back end of the race.
Yeah, a lot of different ways to go. I've just been keeping an eye since earlier on Todd Martin, and it didn't look like he did get a stop and hold in that last stop for a moment there. He only spent 40 seconds in the box, but he's just gone back into the pits again. I think you're bang on. He's served his 40-second stop and hold, gotten back out there. He's actually gone back in again to complete his intended stop now. So I think we'll probably see him coming back out of the pits shortly, although he's spending a little bit longer in there right now. There's been no incident, but he's certainly racking up the time up to almost 50 seconds in his pit box. There we go, bang on 50 seconds spent in the pit box there. Now, whether he was serving his penalty there or perhaps did it on the last lap, because it's a big ask.
I entirely don't understand that, to be honest, Jared. You can serve your stop and go at the end of your pit stop.
It's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like he's done something like forgot to refuel in all of the rush of getting in, and he may have, a lot of drivers set their pit. As I just saw a car spinning in the background, Jared, and I apologise, I don't know who it is. There's someone down at turn 9, if you can find them, and it was just in front of Scotty Rankin. I was just interested to see. No, it looked, as I saw it out of the corner of my eye, I was really nervous that Scotty Rankin had absolutely punted someone there. But just a pretty innocuous dandy road spin. It's just certainly very easy to do in these cars. But back to my point, Jared, a lot of us, when we're racing, we set ourselves up with a lot of things in the pit box turned off, so that if we do and find ourselves involved in an early incident, we don't do things that we don't want to do inadvertently. So, for instance, if I'm in a race where I don't need to refuel, I will immediately turn fueling off. And potentially in a long race like this, I may choose at the start of a race to turn fuel and tyres off, so that if I am involved in a lap 1 incident, I dive into the pits and I don't end up sitting there unnecessarily allowing my car to refuel. So what we may have seen is an instance like that where Martin has had a series of things turned off. He's dived into pits, not much has actually happened. He's served that 40-second stop and hold for that absolutely wild pit entry, and then he's realised that in all that kerfuffle that he actually hasn't got the service that he needed, and he's had to come back in and do it again.
Yeah, that's going to cost him a lot of time, and realistically probably takes him out of contention for anything in the top 20. That said, we're only a third of the way through. Anything can happen from here. But all of this conversation we've had around strategy and different approaches, none of it considers the possibility of a safety car that could really mix everything up here.
It can, and they come so fast. And I mentioned very early on that I just can't see Van der Kraan running too fast, and I sort of kept a bit of an eye on his lap pace at the start, and he was very much matching the cars behind. I think that he took the opportunity to bolt on the first 2 laps and build himself this nice little cushion, and then he simply just took the opportunity to sit there, manage his race pace, because like I said, there's absolutely no point in driving flat out, extending a significant lead, only to find yourself behind a safety car, with burnt up tyres and no lead anymore. So he's doing a good job at the moment. And just quietly, Trav Hunt, he's on the hunt. He has been matching or beating Van der Kraan's lap times for the last few laps, every single lap. So only by a tenth or two here and there, but he has dragged that down to 0.6 of a second. What I'm not 100% sure on is whether Trav Hunt has pitted, but absolutely he has. And if you think that they're not keeping a bit of an eye on each other and understanding what they're doing, in the pits for 26.5 and 26.9 seconds respectively. So there is, the first 5 cars all spending 26 seconds in the pit lane. They are absolutely on the same strategy and, very good understanding of each other and how they work.
You see Van der Kraan going and using the absolute width of the track there as it makes its way around. Now, this lap traffic is going to cause potentially a few headaches for both these drivers, but they've really extended this lead. Trav Hunt and Van der Kraan both lapping around the same sort of pace, although the traffic causing more issues for Van der Kraan there than it did for Hunt. He's closed up even further to just a tenth and a half off the back. Both of them, though, starting to pull away as Jeff Thomas does regain a little bit of time there, but he's been sitting about 6 or 7 seconds back now, and that's just been extending as the laps go on. It's only really this traffic that started to help him bring that back down. So these two, fairly well matched at the moment, both probably just playing a bit of a strategic game with each other at this stage, but they're still pulling away from the rest of the field quite comfortably.
Yeah, these two guys are fast, and no doubt Van der Kraan now will be. He'll know that he's got to get his head back down and start to punch out some quick laps. But a really prime opportunity here for Hunt to capitalise on a little bit of lap traffic getting in the way. Obviously, lap traffic need to move as fast as they can, but there is certainly no obligation for our lap traffic to penalise themselves, as we do see 2 cars now, Gary Buckland and Spriggs, going to go too wide through turn 6. This is a huge move. Spriggs on the outside, he's absolutely managed to get it back there. A really bit of nice respect shown by Gary Buckland to hold it tight through 6 and concede that position, although he makes a fantastic exit through Dandy Road. He has got himself back up alongside just momentarily. Gary Buckland is all over the back of Spriggs here. He might have been passed on the way up the back straight, but he does not want to give this up without a fight. I have to say, Jared, just quietly, that was some of the nicest racing through turn 6, 7, 8 and 9 that I have seen in a long time. It's very, very easy to tangle with each other there, and these guys have just absolutely put on a masterclass in how to get through that section racetrack too.
And we've seen that time and again from Gary Buckland this season. He proves himself not only quick in his own right, but also a very, very steady-minded driver. We've seen him on a number of occasions back out of a challenge to make sure that he lives to fight on, and it's netted him a fair number of points this season purely by staying out of trouble. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's not fighting for those positions, but he's definitely always making that smarter play, keeping the car in one piece, not interested in rubbing panels. He would much rather back it out, keep on track, and then look to make it up in the next passing opportunity. And you can see Spriggs has not managed to open that gap up significantly in the last lap. These two still very, very close together. And so Buckland, still plenty of pace. He's got to keep an eye, though, in the rearview mirror as Matthew Stoyles looks to tack along for the ride. We see a couple more pit stops happening here and there. You've got to wonder whether those are actually... we've got a safety car. Safety car has just been called.
You are absolutely right. I had missed that, Jared. That will be for the Angry Birds car of Sattler, which I think you'll find parked up just on the exit of Dandy Road.
So Peter Sattler here has pulled off the side. What's happened to Peter Sadler?
I'm not sure whether he blew an engine on the way into Dandy Road and maybe managed to get on the clutch and keep that together, but yeah, he has definitely pulled up. I was trying to work out what was going on, Jared, and I did hear the race control channel light up requesting a tow. So yeah, absolutely, here comes that safety car that we talked about. I'm assuming that Hardy hasn't somehow found himself in the lead, and that's just a small timing error.
I would imagine so, mate. Yes.
But I believe that we have seen a number of cars dive into pits there.
Van made his second stop as part of that as well, so that's not surprising at all.
How many? Let me just see, Jad. Let me do some. You feel for me. I'm going to do some quick math on how we're looking to get home from here.
No worries. Well, let's go and take a look. We might try and get on board with Peter Sattler just a little bit earlier from where he actually ran off track there. Let's see if we can take a look at what's happened here. And yeah, certainly not looking particularly healthy at all, that car.
Just going to call out. Oh no, it went down. I was going to say with the car in fourth, Jared, I thought that might be a hardware issue.
No, managed to change down okay. It's a very interesting one. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see what we can find out. I'm just looking for any sign that he's had an issue in the lead up to that. I'm not seeing anything at all prior to that, so I'll keep an eye on it. But Peter Sattler right now is still absolutely stranded. So we'll take a look. I'm going to see if I can find any way for us to actually go back a little further from that point. So I might just have another look at it here, because I'm really interested to see what on earth's happened. We're still going back to there. Let's look. I hate to do this, but let's go back manually and just see if we can see what's happened on the way in. So as he comes down, there it is. Yep, he's popped the motor. So he's shifted down 2 gears from 6th to 4th, and you heard that just absolutely let go. And it's been just enough. That motor is done, and that's what's taken Peter Sattler out. Really unfortunate for him. But yeah, that's not the first time we've had that happen, and it's almost something that we're starting to expect to see a little more often with these Gen 3 supercars. There's certainly been quite a number of cars that have popped motors just on change down, which look, I'll be honest, is really interesting to me. I know after the last Sandown 200 that I covered, Josh, we saw a couple of cars pop motors, and I actually jumped out on Sandown myself a couple nights after that, and I was playing around with putting the clutch in and dropping it down from 6th to 1st, and that was locking tyres up and sliding rather than popping motors. It's a really interesting set of circumstances that leads to the engine letting go, and I'm not quite sure what it is that's doing it, but it seems to be doing it with some regularity here in the Gen 3 supercars. Yeah,
there is. There's usually a pretty standard approach to being able to do it. And to be fair, Jared, it's usually around an over rev. So obviously, if you in that instance that you talked about, by going all the way back to first and just popping the clutch out, the rear wheels will actually lock, and you won't get that over rev. So really, the way to pop your engine is to. Typically, it's on a double downshift, so it's a pretty common tactic used in both the real world and in iRacing, Jared. When you're coming into one of those big braking zones, you really try and get through the first 2 gears as fast as possible. You want the car right in the very top of the rev range to give you the most engine braking that you can. And unfortunately, if you get it just a little bit too wrong, the wheels will continue to rotate, which allows the engine to continue to spin, and it just there's too many revs, and it goes bang.
Well, that's unfortunately the example tonight. Peter Sattler and Luke Allman, absolutely calling out the long stint on tyres. Now safety car is going to change the game quite a bit. We saw a huge number of cars come in and make their second stop. Matt van der Kraan, one of them. I actually think James Hardy is a legitimate first place right now, having just gone past everyone coming in for their second stop. He's only made one, though, back on lap 18. So don't expect him to stay there for a long time. But for the moment, behind the 24/7 Sim Services safety car, that Ford Mustang GT3, leading our drivers around, for the moment, James Hardy is exactly where he's meant to be. We will see how long that lasts. Watch for van der Kraan to absolutely monster him when the safety car does return.
So, Jared, let's talk race strategy from this point on. We now have 35 laps to go to the end, and you can get 34.3 laps out of a tank of fuel.
At full noise, that is.
At full noise. So the safety car is heading away. They have done 3 laps behind the safety car. They will have used somewhere in the vicinity of 1.5 laps worth of fuel to do that. So they are going to have approximately 33 laps of fuel on board at the moment to do 35 laps of racing. If you want the hot tip on what we're about to see, it is Hardy absolutely bolting at the front and everyone behind on maximum fuel conserve. And the strategy from here that we have to understand is, can Hardy get far enough up the road to peel in at lap 40 or 45, grab some fresh tyres and haul the guys down again, because they genuinely have to make 2.5 laps, and they've got to save somewhere in the vicinity of 7 litres of fuel across a 110 litre tank. So they're going to be looking to save at least 10% every lap. They are just not going to be able to do the same lap time that James Hardy's going to do. And so I'm interested to see if there's anyone else, Jared, that bolts at this point. If I was someone like Trav Hunt, for instance, and van der Kraan was going to fuel save, then I would be rounding him up and disappearing down the road and having a crack at a second stop. And alternately, if I was in van der Kraan's shoes at the moment, I would probably be assessing what I thought Trav Hunt was going to do, get myself on an alternate strategy, because at the end of the day, racing someone on the exact same strategy is always far more difficult than having a crack and seeing how you go and rolling around. Trav Hunt is out of the championship. He's out of the championship hunt. If it was me, I'd be going for glory and seeing how far I can get down the road on a brand new fresh set of tyres while Matt van der Kraan's idling around behind me, saving fuel.
Speaking of Trav Hunt following van der Kraan around, that last lap, both of them are 1:09.02. So evenly matched. Certainly not their fastest pace either. They seem quite content to sit behind Hardy, and it's interesting. Like, Hardy can't possibly be thinking about making it to the end of the race right now. He last pitted on lap 18. There's no way he can do it even in maximum fuel save mode. So I've got to wonder what his strategy is here, whether he's going for it, whether van der Kraan is just sticking with him. There's a lot to keep an eye on at this stage, but I don't quite know what to expect at this point. We'll wait and see who blinks first again out of van der Kraan and Hunt, whether either of them have to come into the pits again. Both pitted on lap 27, and if we do take a look at just the sheer number of pit stops around about there, have a look at each of these pit stop laps. Lap 27, that safety car coming out inspired the vast bulk of the field to actually come in and make a stop there. I just see the time starting to come down now into the high 108s as we start to pick up the pace, a little bit of temperature coming back into the tyres. But the total number of pit stops for these drivers, given there are 2 compulsory stops, virtually everybody has completed that now, with the exception, notably, of Jason Spriggs back in P6. So he's put in a huge effort to be back within 1 spot of where he started after that first lap turn 1 crash. He's all the way back up to 5th, but he's got to get another stop in somewhere. And surprisingly, he did not pit under safety car. He might actually be counting on another safety car here to try and get that one in. I don't know how he's going to make that work at this stage.
No, look, you're absolutely right. I think that those who, as we see
Vanderkran into the back of Hunt. No, sorry, back of James Hardy. Trav Hunt goes through. That's going to cost a huge number of positions for Vanderkran, all the way back to 8th now, and he's in amongst the traffic. Not somewhere he's accustomed to being. He can certainly fight his way out of it, but that's going to cost him not just the positions now, but also the damage to the front of that car is going to slow him down considerably as we see Caperonis make the pass, and Vanderkran needs to just settle back into his rhythm very, very quickly.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on race control asking for that to be reviewed, but I would not be surprised to see a small penalty come out of that for Vanderkran. A pretty average mistake there, just getting into the back of the car in front, not trying to put a move on or anything. So potentially being caught out by a far earlier braking marker than he's used to. As we do see now, Chad Vigor taking a very wide line through 6, 7, and 8, and then locking up into 9. So this pack, Jared, talk about a safety car coming out and re-energising things. There is everything to play for at the moment, and we do really see a number of cars pushing hard. I am very interested to see how this plays out from this point on, to understand what everyone's thinking. Have they simply taken the safety car because they could? It was essentially a free pit stop, and they're all going to pit again, or is someone going to make the bold move and do an alternate strategy and fuel save? Because I'll be honest, from what I'm seeing at the moment, these guys don't sound or look like they are fuel saving a huge amount, I think that they're all sort of banking on either another safety car to make it home, or they need to pit again. And just while I can, Jared, Jason Spriggs, after that little incident, up to 3rd, and now absolutely hunting down the car in 2nd of Logsdale. He's still got another stop to make, but he will absolutely be head down, doing everything he can to punch out some seriously fast laps and minimise the damage of that first lap incident where he got a drive-through.
Yeah, still a long way to go, and plenty of opportunity for him, but it's really that's the real storm cloud over his head right now, is that stop that he still needs to make, where everyone else effectively has made the second. With the exceptions of James Hardy and Gary Buckland, that is. He has to make that second stop, and it is going to be a costly one for him. This battle for 6th at the moment, although we look a little further ahead, really battle for 5th. James Hardy out in front here, Gary Buckland just behind him. You've got Stoyles, Caperonis, Matt Vanderkran in amongst the pack there, Chad Vigor, Damon Fisher, Simon Haynes, Damien Cairns, all caught up in amongst it. We were talking earlier about Gary Buckland. He's currently 12 spots up. Again, needs to make that next pit stop, but he's right there in the thick of it. And there it is, a post-race penalty for car number 180, Matt Vanderkran, for the contact with James Hardy, as we see Lucas Burt off into that same wall again out of Dandenong Road. It's every time you see that curb on the outside is an absolute killer. Take a look further back through the pack. Michael Hayes at the head of this little battle pack as well. So he's got Walden, Sipple, Martin and Granshaw tailing him at this stage. We're starting to see a bit of separation here again as the drivers do settle back into their packs. Michael Hayes has got about 6 seconds between himself and Peter Latham further ahead. So these guys are a long way back, but still locked in as we see Walden lock up. That's a long way off the track there. So Walden very lucky to keep the car under control and not barrel into one of his competitors, but find himself, you can see the dust rising in the background. He was deep into that kitty litter before he actually managed to get under control.
Your version of under control and my version of under control may be slightly different, Jared.
Well, look, the car was pointed in the direction that it was moving, which is always a good start, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And just to tidy up the exact consequence of Matt Vanderkran's little mistake, as we do move back to looking at that battle for fifth that includes Matt van der Graan, we saw it come up on screen, a post-race penalty. That penalty is 5 championship points, so that has brought him a little bit back closer to his competitors, and of course being buried back now in ninth, and to be fair, doing the pace of the cars around him. So this is very much what I mentioned earlier, Jared, that it's one thing to drive in clear air, but once you're buried in the pack, it's so hard to pass the cars in front. Throw into the mix a little bit of damage on the front end, making it slightly more difficult to drive that Ford Mustang than he's used to. And we see him not being able to just drive forward like we might expect at other tracks. So it's going to be exciting, and let me assure you that there's probably no one in front of him that really cares that he is currently in first place in the championship. They are here for glory, and they all want to get the best result that they can, and they will be fighting for that. There isn't going to be anyone, in my opinion, that just quietly moves out of the way and lets him through.
No, I wouldn't expect to see that on any night of the week, much less round 9 of this championship. Interesting to note that that's not a 5-point post-race penalty is not incredibly problematic for someone with a 100-point lead out in first place, but really the bulk of the penalties come with the damage and the position he finds himself, as you say. So he's got a lot of positions to make up. The only thing that he can probably hope to salvage here, though, if you think about who's around him in the championship, you've got Jason Spriggs currently sitting up in third, but still with a pit stop to make before he's met the compulsory requirements here tonight. You've got Dean Logsdale certainly looking to pick up some points, but I think he'll be fighting it out for P3 if memory serves, or it may have been Damien Cants. I still don't see, even with van der Graan potentially finishing 10 spots back, I still think it's going to be a massive uphill battle for anyone to snatch that championship trophy away from him this season.
Yeah, you're right. So, Spriggs in second place, 100 points off the lead. Logsdale in third, 200 off the lead. If my memory does serve me correctly, and yes, they're both up ahead, and they will make a dent on van der Graan's championship lead. But they're certainly not going to rain down. And just for everyone's understanding, a 5-point penalty, not a huge one, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a huge incident, and Matt van der Graan making the mistake and tagging the back of James Hardy, but in reality he didn't spin him all the way around, and James Hardy is actually back up and racing in front of Matt van der Graan. So it was a move and a mistake that needed to be penalised, but it also wasn't one that had dire consequences for the person that he hit. So I think that five championship points is probably pretty fitting for that sort of a crime.
And you've got to say, race control here gets it pretty right most of the time. Good to see them retaining that approach to things. I can't say I've seen a race control decision yet in this series that I went, oh, that's pretty harsh, or not harsh enough. It seems to strike a really good balance. So absolute kudos to the crew sitting up there in race control making these decisions. Have a look at this train that's going on right now, from James Hardy all the way back to Rick Vigar. It's just this is Sandown, isn't it? Trying to get some separation without a mistake is almost impossible to do.
It is, and it's when I did a bit of looking at some data, Jared, after last week's race, and in reality there are 4 braking zones on this track, and 2 of them are probably not really great passing opportunities. So there's 2, genuine passing opportunities, and then there's a couple of, minor opportunities, I guess, or opportunistic opportunities if something really opens up in front of you, but it's so hard to pass. I actually think that makes for fantastic racing. Having to craft a pass is a lot of fun, and racing in these packs is really challenging, and it really brings out the best in our races, although sometimes unfortunately it also brings out the worst. And these sorts of packs are what we expect to see, and it's very, very frustrating being involved in one of these packs and knowing that you may very well be the fastest car in the whole pack and that there's just nothing that you can do and nowhere that you can go. It's really challenging, and the fact that we haven't seen Van der Kraan put a move on, we made the comment after about 6 or 7 laps that really it's lap traffic that's going to slow him down. This was the guy who just drove away from the field, and now he's not even able to make a pass. He hasn't made a single pass since he found himself in that train. It really does show the skill of everyone around him, but it also really lends itself to the nature of this track where it's so very difficult. So it's going to be interesting from here. No, I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Van der Kraan finish about where he is, to be honest, Jared, because it kind of makes sense.
That it does, as we make our way around onto a lap 43 of 65, 2/3 of the way there. This is about where we were originally expecting to see the second pit stop happen, but at the moment it's certainly not looking that way. And we've got Matty Parker calling the Sipple dive bomb. I don't know that I caught that one, but it's worth perhaps going back for a look at. Dylan Sipple sort of out of the race. I assume you're referring to Troy Sipple, but I didn't catch anything in particular. Let's perhaps go back and I'm just going to have a quick look and see if I can see anything noteworthy in the background.
It's worth noting, Jared, that the dive bombs are about the only way to get passes done around here. So, it's not at all surprising that we see guys put huge moves on. The trick to a good quality dive bomb is of course getting it pulled up. So, as I say that though, I wouldn't necessarily say that's what I would consider pulled up. He has very much hip and shouldered his way through there. We do love to see a little bit of aggressive racing, and of course,
Michael Hayes didn't recover from that one, did he?
He did not, and that's such an easy mistake to make there for Hayes. So obviously having been bumped on the way through, you're very committed, I would say, Jared, to making sure that you get your position back that you feel is rightly yours, and it's so very easy to make that mistake and spin, as we do see Caparonis and Hardy, I think it is, really thought about going through there too wide. Although we've got a quantum car that's going very slow, that may be a laps car. That's going to present a problem for Damon Fisher on the way down into Danny Rose. I'm not sure exactly what the issue there is with Rose, but he has absolutely tripped up a couple of cars there, and they've all done a fantastic job to get around without causing any more issues. He's doing a great job here of keeping an eye on his mirrors and pulling up at an appropriate spot, but there was just a couple of little issues on the back straight through that 678 spot. So fantastic to see everyone get through and no big issues, and it just looks like a case of Rose doing his very best to get out of the way of a very big train of cars that are a lap ahead of him.
And it still is, the train starting to space out a little, but still all very close together. Damien Cairns and Simon Haynes going at it here for 10th, as Cairns gets very, very loose on the exit. Not the first time we've seen that, and certainly won't be the last time tonight, with 20 odd laps remaining in this Sandown 200. Damien Cairns has got to keep an eye as Simon Haynes gets alongside. Damien Cairns takes the very defensive inner line there. That's going to cost him a bit of pace, but I don't think Simon Haynes is looking to push too much further ahead just at the moment. Coming back to Van der Kraan and just the way that he's been stuck in amongst that traffic, I do wonder a little whether he's made the decision at this point to actually just ride out this 20 laps and not risk pushing too hard and finding himself out of the race entirely because he ends up spinning himself. At this point, a 7th place position is not a bad way to finish when you're out so far in front. You don't want to jeopardise the championship in the second to last round by getting hot-headed about P6 versus P7, for instance.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think, Jared, though, that it's really about the fact that it's just so hard to pass. So, Van der Kraan is a very good, smart racer. We've seen him put together some fantastic drives, and I really think that it's just about making sure that he doesn't do anything silly. So, there's a big difference, I guess, between being happy to sit where you are and just being very much self-aware that there's nowhere to go.
It takes me back to a thought that was half-formed for me a little earlier, but we're talking about how difficult it actually is to pass in a Gen 3 supercar. I think that's what I enjoy most about these is the fact that you really do have to craft a pass over some distance. When I think about how easy it can be, like we talk about the GT3s, right? Super popular series here on iRacing. And look, with good reason, it does generate some fun racing. But when you look at getting passes done in a GT3, it's a totally different prospect to trying to do it in something like a supercar, where a GT3 can absolutely just pick a better line and get that drive out. They've got so much more downforce, so much more grip available. You really can get a pass done with even the slightest of mistakes. Here in the supercars, yeah, okay, we might see a bit of an error, a bit of a wobble out of one of the drivers ahead of you, but to capitalise on that, it's still going to take you 3, 4, 5 corners to really set that up, and it's possible to lose that advantage just as easily if you don't absolutely nail your lines in closing that down. So a much more entertaining series in my view, because it does really take racecraft to progress through a field.
It does, Jared. The way that I often would think about it, GT3 cars are genuine gentleman races, and they are fantastic fun to drive. I love driving GT3 cars, but when we consider the art of a pass in a GT3 car, we have driver aids for corner entry and we have driver aids for corner exit in ABS and traction control. So realistically, the way that we make that happen, those passes happen, that we brake a little bit later and we abuse those driver aids to get the car pulled up. And then on corner exit, we stomp on the throttle a little bit earlier and we abuse those driver aids to get going without spinning again. And of course, it's not a perfect recipe. You can push too hard, but really the driving style for GT3 is what I would personally call overdriving the car. You drive them aggressively, you abuse the downforce, you abuse the driver aids, and you throw everything that you can at every corner. Whereas a V8 supercar, you actually drive fastest by underdriving the car. So you can absolutely brake later than where you would choose to otherwise, but you'll be slower because the car moves around under brakes, or you'll be going just a little bit faster than ideal at turn-in, and with absolutely no aero on these things. These cars only produce somewhere in the vicinity of 35 or 40 kilos of front downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. So by the time that you make it to the corner and you're doing 70 or 80 k's an hour, you've basically got no downforce at all, and you are relying entirely on the grip of the tyre, which means that if you are carrying a little bit too much speed when you turn it in, there's just no front tyre and you end up losing speed through the corner. The same on the way out. If you try and pick up the throttle a little bit too early, you get wheel spin. So these cars very much reward underdriving them, but of course that means that passing is so very difficult, because to be the fastest that you can, you have to underdrive the car. So when you do see the wobble of the car in front, you want to jump on the throttle, and you just don't have the grip available. When you do get a run down a straight, you want to brake later and just absolutely pin the brakes as hard as you can, but you know that that's just going to result in a brake lock. And what we end up seeing is, as you said, Jared, really good 3 and 4 corner long battles, or alternately we see passes where 2 or 3 cars all come rushing through, because if you're being passed, you get touched wide on corner apex, because realistically to have a car at the apex with you is about as far as you can go. It's not like a GT3 car where you make a full car length pass before the apex. And so on the corner exit, the next car comes and dives in, and then they pass you, and then the next car comes and dives in, and you're offline, you're out of rhythm, and you just become so vulnerable to the cars behind. So you do everything that you can to defend from the cars behind. You drive as fast as you possibly can when there's a car behind, so that you don't end up in that situation where 2, 3, 4 cars come through. But because everyone's driving as fast as they can, it makes it so hard to get the pass done. And as you said, it's very exciting. It can lead, when you've got some people who aren't, particularly skilled in these cars, it can lead to some scrappy racing. But when you get guys and girls who know how to drive these cars very well, it produces this racing that we're looking at here between Vigor, Varga and Rankin, where it's just lap after lap after lap of cars that are so close to each other.
And really testing and pushing every little opportunity they get. We've been sitting here watching this battle in particular for, I think, about 3 or 4 laps here while you've been running through that experience that you do have behind the wheel of a supercar, Josh. And the race order hasn't changed, but you've seen so many little opportunities where you can see Vargs is just probing, he's testing, he's just pushing Rick Vigard ever so slightly to try and force an error or find a weakness. And Scott Rankin's right there doing it alongside him, doing the same to Vargs. These 3 have been in this lineup for quite some time. We're into lap 52 now of our 65, but it is absolutely continuing. And further up, you've got another battle going on in this pack with Damien Cairns and Simon Haynes, who have been nose to tail for about the same length of time. Damon Fisher looks as though he's just had a bit of a moment, or it might just be him disconnecting, I think, for a split second there. So he's stayed on track just fine. iRacing likes to give me little heart attacks like that, I swear. But these guys have just been at it, lap after lap, and maintaining the consistency that they have has been absolutely epic to watch. Even here, 52 laps in, you've got to start to wonder what's going to happen in terms of fueling. Have they saved enough? And there's a mistake from Fisher. As Damon Fisher has run wide. Again, down on road, claims the victim. He's managed to tack back onto this group, but Damien Cairns then finds himself well offline. This is an opportunity for Simon Haynes and for Chad Vigard to potentially get away, and thankfully Cairns has just made his car so wide that they had no choice, no opportunity to make it pass on that one. I want to go back a few laps here. I've just noticed, just sitting in our timing screens, Joseph Granshaw having a bit of a rough night. I want to check if this is reasonably accurate. So comes through and just locks it up, goes into the wall, takes the front and the back end out. Very lucky not to get taken out there, but he's had to limp that back around with some damage as well. Not his night tonight. Got caught up in quite a few of these. We've had them come together finally after so many laps. That's Farga and what looks like Peter Latham having come together in there. That's really unusual. That can't be right. No, that's Farga's come together with another driver from further back. It looks like actually Rick Vigard was involved in that one. Let's go back and take a look and see what's happened here. So Vigard has come wide. Varga's got up and just come straight across. That is Rick Vigard caught there, and Vargas is left stranded in the middle of the track, just barely.
Goodness me!
Now is that incredibly well timed, or was that a little bit foolish on Varg's part to reverse the way he did with those cars coming through?
I'm not going to make any comment at this point from the angle that we had, but it was one of those two things, Jared. It was either the most perfectly timed move that we've seen, or it was bordering on a dangerous rejoin.
I'll leave that one to race control to figure out.
Yeah, that's
But,
not us, mate. That's
no,
that is not us.
That's not us tonight. I do not want any part of that decision. Take a look up front. This has not changed for about the last 15 laps. Trav Hunt and Dean Logsdale, Team AJ are right up amongst it, and just hanging in there, waiting to see what might happen with these drivers as we approach rapidly the end of this 200 k's of Sandown. Trav Hunt's been very, very consistent, just lapping comfortably in those low 109s, and Logsdale's been right there with him. Matt Vanderkraan, though, already back up to 4th place. So that has just been ticking away in the background as some of these other drivers have fallen by the wayside. And Vanderkraan, look, he's certainly looking a lot healthier than he was just 10 laps ago. Not going to be, at this stage, I can't imagine a podium finish, but in terms of championship points, he's not going to be at all disappointed with where he's likely to finish at this stage.
No, he won't be at all upset about that. I'm just interested to see whether it looks like the guys are doing any sort of fuel saving. So I'm just gonna jump on board and have a look at a few of these cars, Jared, and just see whether I can work out whether there's any fuel saving going on, because I'm going to be incredibly impressed if they manage to make it to the end, having done a stint all the way from that safety car.
And look, to be lapping consistent 109s, that suggests they're not going full pace, but it's so close to full pace that I can't imagine it's actually saving a huge amount of fuel. They must be driving on the very, very edge of their fuel envelope here to be pushing this hard. We might jump on board with Trav Hunt. Keep a close eye on your dashboard there. He's absolutely still pushing full revs right through these gears. So he's certainly not looking to back it off, although perhaps, there you go, he's maybe not pushing quite as hard to the top of 6th there as you might expect, and still maintaining plenty of pace as he comes down towards Dandenong Road. Certainly no slower through that set of corners than we'd ordinarily expect, and yeah, look, maybe the tiniest bit of short shifting going on, but it's almost imperceptible. To me at least, Josh. I don't know about your perhaps more keen eye for this. If he's doing fuel saving strategies here at all, they are so subtle that it's going to be a real challenge to see if he can actually make the next 8 laps.
No, look, to be fair, Jared, there's nothing going on there that I would consider to be fuel saving. He definitely looks to be driving a very nice, comfortable pace, but he's going to be limited by tyres. This is a huge run on the tyres as well as the fuel, and these guys are doing a good job of managing both tyres and fuels, but they're definitely not fuel saving. But they would be using ever so slightly less, purely by the fact that they're not doing qualifying laps. But I've watched a couple of these cars now, Jared, and it doesn't appear to me that there's any fuel saving going on at the front.
Damien Cairns unfortunately coming unstuck there in turn 2, turn 3. That complex catches out yet another driver. Here we go. Vargs and Spriggs side by side into that same complex. Spriggs has to back it out a little bit, but he's got the inside run into the Pertec corner and comes out ahead. Can he get the power down and pull away down the back straight? Looks like he's got it done. And after a lot of laps on Varg's tail, it's back up and running down the back straight. Jason Spriggs picks up another spot as he tries to recover what he can, but Varga is not going to give it up so easy. Spriggs having to take the defensive line there to hold him off, and you can see Vargas is looking again for another way past. Don't count out either Troy Sipple just behind. He's been right with them the whole way, and this battle will continue all the way down here in P13. Let's go back and take a look and see just what happened to Damien Cairns. And it's that inside curb again. It's.
Chad, I just want to watch that again. I think that he's received a bit of a push on the way into turn 2, which has unsettled him.
Well, let's go back. We'll see if we can find another angle on that one, and let's slow it down and see what we can pick up here. You're absolutely right. There it is. There's the nudge.
So that nudge has unsettled him. And of course, having done, what are we on to now? Almost lap 60. So many marbles out there, so hard to regain control. And of course, once he's up on that curb, it's all over. So I very much expect to see a penalty coming the way of potentially Chad Vigor. It may have been, although I don't want to throw any...
Yeah, it does look to be Chad Vigor that has made the contact there. So... yeah, again, I can't imagine it'll be a huge penalty if it is one, but it did have a reasonably significant impact, even if it is a bit further back in the field than perhaps the top end of it. Drive-through, maybe some post-race points. We'll see.
I think the post-race points, but maybe more than 5. But I can confirm that has been called in, and he's under review by race control.
As always, they're right onto this battle up the front. Jeff Thomas has really closed the gap now to Hunt and Logsdale, which suggests to me that perhaps these guys are running just a little light on the pace. We're down to 6 laps to go as we come on to lap 60 of 65 now. This could be pushing very close to the line. I'm watching for any hint of a cough from one of these cars.
Logsdale is moving around. He really wants Trav Hunt to know that he's here. He is desperately trying to distract him and make him look in the mirrors and miss his break point. But Trav Hunt doing a fantastic job out the front of keeping the car straight and hitting his brake markers at every single corner. These guys are matched pretty close on pace. I can tell you that last lap, Trav Hunt was 0.3 slower than both of the cars behind him. So I'm not sure if there was just ever so slight mistake or whether there is a little bit of fuel saving starting to come into it now. But with only 5 laps to go, you really would think that Trav is pretty comfortable that he's gonna get home. And of course, Jeff Thomas going to be doing absolutely everything that he can to push Dean Logsdale out of the way. The JWM cars they'll be chatting, they'll be talking to each other and making sure that they've got a bit of a plan, and they'll be doing everything that they can to make sure that there's not the option for a team AJR win. What I can tell you is that the incident that we just saw before with Chad Vigor has resulted in a 10 championship point penalty being awarded.
That'll do it. So it's not a huge one, but it is a bit more substantial than the one we saw issued to Matt Vanderkart earlier, and not surprising given the outcome. We'll come back to this podium race in just a moment because we are getting to the pointy end, and what a time for these guys to come together and give us a real show of a finish. I do want to take a look a bit further back because there's battles going on right throughout as always, and Gary Buckland right now is right on the back of Matthew Stoyles and Rick Vigard just ahead. So the 3 of them battling it out for P18 at this point. There is nothing in it here between the 3 of them. Vigard's car certainly has copped a fair bit of damage here tonight, and you can see that front left on the right hand side as you look at it on screen there. It's certainly out of shape, and a post-race review being called in there for contact between Vargs and car 14, which was who was that he made contact with? Rick Vigor, there you go. Sorry, car 014, not car 14. Car 14, Trav Hunt well out in front at the moment. Gary Buckland getting it done. Matthew Stoyles just gets out of the way. Scott Rankin now is under pressure from Damien Cairns. Little bit of contact as he moves across the front, but Rankin hanging in there up 5 positions from his starting place, and considering by the end of turn 1 he was at the very back of the field, a massive comeback to find himself in P9 with just a few laps left. Further up through the field, you've got Chad Vigor and Simon Haynes battling it out for 6th. These guys barely separated. Really, Simon Haynes, a stellar drive tonight, up 9 positions into 7th. So just a few laps to go. We will see if he can make it to the end on his fuel setup. But all eyes will be on that top 3 of Hunt, Logsdale and Thomas as we approach the end of this 200 kilometres of Sandown here with Alliance Sim Racing.
And what an end to this race that we're seeing. What I will note as we get back towards the part of the track that we saw last lap with the move on between Rankin and Cairns, the award of the night for the biggest amount of bravery shown, I reckon, is Scotty Rankin absolutely slamming the door on Damien Cairns when there was, I reckon he would have struggled to get a tally-ho paper between the two cars. But this time, we do see Cairns down the inside. He throws it in, and in a classic Supercars move, he drives Scotty Rankin all the way out to the exit curb, and we see Scotty Rankin on the headlights flashing Damien Cairns. He's not real happy about being pushed so wide, but at the end of the day, sometimes you got to do that to get the pass made.
And I've got to be honest, I don't think that's a whole lot different to Rankin's move on Cairns the previous lap. So good for the goose, good for the gander. Maybe the way to look at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I said, it was brave of Rankin to slam the door like he did the lap before. Brave might be a nice way of saying potentially a little bit cheeky. And I think that Cairns just got that better run the lap later. And as you said, Jared, good for the goose, good for the gander. And Cairns probably just thought to himself, you know what, if I'm going to have a door slammed on me one lap, I'm just going to slam one the next lap, and we'll see how things play out from there.
Yeah, all good fun. No contact. No one's been speared off the track. So at the end of the day, it's just good hard racing. As we see more of that from Chad Vigor and Haynes here. The battle for sixth raging on. We are coming very, very quickly towards the final lap as Trav Hunt and Dean Logsdale out in front. We'll keep an eye on this because Thomas has really closed that gap up behind Logsdale. So the Team OJR entry is certainly sandwiched between the two JWM Sim Sports cars of Hunt and Thomas. It's all going to come down to this. We've got one more lap to go. Let's stay with this because this will be the final lap of the race, the podium right here on screen. Let's see what moves are up the sleeve. Do they have the fuel to put anything on? There's the white flag from our man Barney in the stand, and we make our way down for the final 3 and a bit kilometres of this 200-kilometre race around Sandown. Trav Hunt maintaining his lead so far, seems to have the fuel to make it to the end. A massive stint on these tyres, just shy of 40 laps. There's going to be nothing left in it. The only saving grace here for Trav Hunt is that he knows Logsdale and Thomas behind him are exactly the same situation. All of these guys pitting on lap 27 as Thomas goes very, very wide, gets a little bit loose. That may be all it takes to count him out and gives Logsdale the opportunity to really focus ahead and see if he can close this gap with half a lap here to go of our Sandown 200 event.
As he's got a big move now up over the top of the hill at turn 6 and down towards Dandenong Road. So easy to make a mistake here. Dean Logsdale needs to be very careful that he doesn't get a little bit overexcited. Just a little twitch on exit there from Logsdale. It's the last real opportunity here into the last corner. He's going to be making sure that he's all over the curb here. Second last corner and looking to get the drive. There is the opportunity here for a run to the pass. As he gets wide, can Jeff Thomas come through and get him at the line? Absolutely crucial error there by Dean Logsdale on the last corner, but he manages to hold his second place by 0.2 of a second. Jared, I don't think that you could have scripted a better end to the race for the top three. Seeing them all cross the start line on the last lap with 0.2 or 0.3 of a second between them has been a fantastic result. Matt Vanderkraan driving all the way back to fourth at the finish, which is fantastic. Obviously good for his championship as well, although with a 5-point penalty hanging over his head. Caperonis, Vigor, Haynes, Fisher, Cairns, Scotty Rankin, potentially driver of the day to come back to 10th after facing backwards on the very first corner. Dane Nofdurft in 11th. Phil Latham, Spriggs, Vargas, Sipple, Hardy and Walden are all running now towards the line as we are on board with Gary Buckland as he goes for his last opportunity. These guys are absolutely fighting to the very end. Once again, making that move off the last corner, trying to get the power down and getting up beside. Not able to do it. Has to settle for a 19th place for Gary Buckland, which isn't particularly, I guess, what we would normally look to see. But a huge gap back now to Stoyles and Martin and the rest of the crew. Stoyles, the last one, still out on track with of it, yet to break the checkered flag. So as we see Logsdale now come back around to the front straight, he will be very excited with a second place in such a big race and looking to celebrate. Jared, I don't know about you, but if you would have said to me at the start that we would get to see a finish like that, I would have been pretty happy to take it for all money, as we do see our first two cars coming from inside that top six. Not really any big movers and shakers throughout the field. I guess with the exception really of Scott Rankin coming from the very back of the field at lap 1. Dane Nofdurf coming forward 12, Peter Latham 10. But in a series, Jared, where we frequently see people making up 15, 16, 17 spots, tonight has been a night of close racing and track position, and I just can't believe that we've managed to get a winner like that. 0.8 at the line is surprising considering how it was a little bit of a scrappy last lap, but what a way to finish this race, and how exciting to set us up for the Phillip Island 600 next week, just to whet our appetite for endurance racing.
Absolutely, and let's have a chat to each of our podium sitters. We'll start with Jeff Thomas. Jeff, welcome to the booth and congratulations on a stellar drive. You almost had P2 there at the line with Dean, but a third place after 200 Ks. You've got to be happy with that, mate.
Yeah, didn't qualify very well, so that didn't help. So yeah, pretty happy to get up where we were. Made my own couple of little mistakes, which could have meant things were a bit, could have been better. But yeah, I was a bit worried Dean was into the wall there for a second on that last corner, but I lit up as well. Not as bad as him, but yeah, didn't quite get the drive I needed to get past. So,
mate, how did? No, go for it.
Sorry, Jared. It looked there, Jeff, like you made a bit of a mistake out of turn 4 on the last lap, heading onto the back straight. So, did that count you out, or from your seat were you still close enough to maybe make a move up through 6 and down towards Dandy Road?
No, I actually said the Trav in front there. I said, no, lit it up coming out of there. That's probably about it done. Unless Dean makes a mistake. Yeah. And in the end, they were a bit slow, probably into Dandy, and I caught him back up. But yeah, just wasn't a little mistake. So,
look, a solid drive all around, a very deserved third place tonight, getting a step on the podium. Jeff, well done. A great result for JWM. And we'll chat to Trav in just a moment, I'm sure, as well. But we'll let you go and celebrate what has no doubt been a pretty taxing drive with your beverage of choice.
I certainly will have a drink. That was hard work, but thanks, Jared. Thanks, Josh. We'll catch you next week, eh?
Fingers crossed, mate. We'll be talking to you again soon. Well done. Cheers, Jeff.
Cheers.
And we'll bring, of course, Dean Logsdale now joins us in the booth. Dean, have we got you with us?
You have indeed.
Well, first of all, a huge shout out to you. A lot of support for Team AJR in the chat tonight, as always, and you've represented beautifully tonight all over the back of Trav Hunt for what seems like most of the race, when in reality perhaps it was only the last, 20 laps or so. We were so worried for you just at the final turn there, almost kissing the wall, but managing to hold off Jeff Thomas. Mate, a hard-fought P2 tonight. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling worn out, to be honest. I was just trying to hang in there, and I knew when the tyres were going to wear off, then I'd probably hang in with him. And then I see Spriggs behind me, and which I see every race. He's either in front of me or behind me, so I thought, here we go again. But I thought, he mustn't have pitted. And then, it was just a case of trying to drive as smooth as you can, preserve the tyres, and try and wait for a mistake. But I thought I'd get as close as I could going into the last corner, hoping he would do what I did, but I did it, so it didn't quite work out. But happy with the second place. It was awesome.
I've got to ask, just how close were you to the end of your fuel? Because the last pit on lap 27, it's almost 40 laps on those tyres, which is an effort in itself. But we were desperately trying to guess right from about lap 35, I think it was. Josh and I started talking about what the fuel strategy might be. Just how fine was that margin you had in the end?
I finished with about 0.4 of a lap. Half a lap, so I could have gained a little bit more, but as it happens, I didn't really need to. But yeah, it was reasonably tight. You never know. If the safety car was a lap shorter, then I might have been caught out. So yeah, it was pretty fine. So I didn't have to fuel save, put it that way.
Well, I was very happy to see that you had enough in the tank to cut a couple of burnouts for us at the end. Really appreciate the vision for the stream, if nothing else, mate. A fantastic drive tonight. A great result just off the back of Trav in the end, and solid whack of points for Team AJR there. Congratulations on P2, and mate, definitely important to go and hydrate now, isn't it?
I think so, mate. Yep. And I just want to give a shout out to the team, AJR. They've been awesome and real supportive group of guys. And say hello to me mum as well. Mum and dad, they're watching, so they're great fans. They love it.
Oh, good.
Fantastic to hear.
I always love to hear that we've got the family watching out there. It always brings me a bit of a warm, fuzzy feeling to know that we're bringing your exploits into their living rooms or onto their computers at home. And mate, you've done them bloody proud tonight. Well done.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and thanks for putting on a great broadcast as well, guys.
Cheers, Dean. Enjoy, mate. Well earned.
Thank you.
And Josh, it's been a little while, I think, since we last had the opportunity to chat to the man himself. But Travis Hunt, welcome back to the booth.
Oh, thanks, boys. About time.
It's been a moment, hasn't it? Since we really got to talk about a P1. But mate, what a drive from you! It's from start to finish, and I've got to. I hate to do this, but I've got to give it to Josh Harris here. He did say that the winner was going to come from that top 6 group of cars, and that's why the qualifying was so important. You're up 2 spots from where you qualified, so clearly I owe Josh a beer or two on that one. But mate, just a stellar drive, a fantastic result for JWM, taking 1st and 3rd. I just asked Dean Logsdale this same question. Just how was your fuel situation at the end of that one, mate?
Oh, mate, so for the first one I put in 60, the second one, I always forget about it, but I came in and I put in 2 laps too many. Usually if I know I'm under safety car, I go, it's at least 2 laps, so I'll take out half of a lap, for each lap of the safety car. But I just left the same amount in, so I put in 60 something. Yeah, so I finished with 2 laps of fuel, so it took way too much. But if I'd taken it out, I would have got in front of Matty. But I think that would have been a bit of a struggle trying to hold Matty off. So yeah, it was unfortunate to see him go around.
Oh, look, unfortunate maybe, but he certainly did himself a whole bunch of favours and got back up to P4. So in the end, it's almost like nothing happened to the bloke. He charged hard after that. So
that's a bloody good drive.
It is, and a lot of really solid drives. But for yourself, really the consistency paying off tonight. The last tyre change there, so lap 27, you took that fuel on and perhaps a little bit too much, but certainly good to not have to worry about it a great deal. How are the tyres coping, almost 40 laps into a stint?
Yeah, that's it. I was trying to manage them, and I don't know if you saw, but I was ahead. I was trying to keep that 1.2 second gap, but he was coming, so I'd let the tyres cool off a bit and then push it for 2 laps and let them cool off. But towards the end there, they were getting very, very slippery. So I was just trying to get the run out of the corner and just keep him back there so he doesn't get, the overlap or anything into a corner. So that was just the main focus.
Well, mate, it's paid off beautifully for you tonight. A fantastic win, great set of results for JWM Sim Sports. And both yourself and Jeff representing beautifully. Pleasure to have you back in the booth, mate. It has been too long since we last got to speak to you, so looking forward to perhaps doing it again next week for the season final. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we call it a night here?
Oh, I just want to thank all the sponsors of the team for JWM, and I just really want to say a really big thank you to the organisers of the league. They do a good job every week, mixing it up and making it different every week. And yeah, so I just really appreciate that. And thanks to everyone we get to race against every week. Really good job, so appreciate it. And thanks to you guys. Really good stream. I'll be watching it back right now.
Enjoy. Always a pleasure, Trav. We'll let you go and unwind a bit, mate. Looking forward to chatting to you again in the not too distant future, I hope. But congrats again on P1 this evening.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Travis Hunt there, your winner for round 9, our penultimate round in this championship. And Josh, look, as far as the championship standings go, I will be honest, I'm not entirely certain whether we need to consider any double points here tonight. So, look, I don't want to...
I went looking and I'm not sure, to be honest, Jared, but I think that what we'll see is that realistically, with Jason Spriggs ending up having a bit of an issue, and then Matt Vanderkraan finishing in fourth, the gap that Dean Logsdale, or I guess the dent that Dean Logsdale has been able to make is probably not enough at this stage. So when we talked at the start of the race about anything can happen and maybe Matt Vanderkraan has a bad race, well, when fourth is a bad race for you, that is the hallmarks of a champion, and that is why a lot of champions are repeat champions, is because they just have this uncanny ability to recover from incidents and find a way to make it right by the end of the series.
Yeah, it's always impressive to watch, isn't it? Just how some of these drivers manage to hold this together week after week. Nice to see though a bit of a mix on the podium compared to what we've probably seen for the rest of the season. But I don't think it'll stop Vanderkraan. We've got one more race to go in this season, and of course it all comes down to next week as we head to Phillip Island to finish this off. And what a way to be jumping in a final race there at Phillip Island next week ahead of the Enduro, the first of the Endurance Championship races at Phillip Island just under a week after that. There's a lot going on. Phillip Island is the place to be over the next week. But Josh, I think we've got to just keep our eyes on the prize here. Matt Vanderkraan still probably in a great position as we do look to the end of the season. But we will, of course, check that at the start of next race and see just what might be in store for the final round of Season 3 here with Alliance Sim Racing. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, Josh, having you along in the booth. Thank you again for joining us here on the broadcast. Anything that you might like to add before we call it a night here for our viewers?
No, I think you've summed it up pretty well, Jared. It's always my pleasure to be here. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and especially thank you to our drivers for putting on the entertainment that we get to watch. One last trip next week, Jared. I can't wait. I will be here, and I look forward to not only chatting to some race winners, but to also crowning our Season 3 champion.
Well, all to come. Do make sure, if you haven't already, you pop down below, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the action, either next week as we wrap up Season 3 or indeed as we bring the Endurance Championship to you live and exclusive here on the Alliance Sim Racing channel in a little over a week's time. But of course, this wraps up another fantastic night of racing here in the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercar Championship. On behalf of everyone here at Simple Racing Broadcasts, it's been an absolute pleasure, and a huge thank you to everyone who's tuned in, to all of the drivers putting on the great show that we've had tonight, and of course to those league organisers for making it all happen. And last but not least, of course, our major sponsors in AA West Automotive and Quantum Tint Solutions, making this all possible. We had wheel-to-wheel battles all night tonight. We had a couple of strategic masterstrokes that have really played into the hands of our winners. And of course, that last lap drama with Dean Logsdale just barely hanging on to P2. We've had it all tonight here at Sandown, and I've got no doubt that Phillip Island will supply more of that. So again, if you've enjoyed the action, make sure you like the video, give us a subscribe down below, and keep in touch for more incredible racing action. From everyone here at Simple Racing Broadcast, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time for more high-octane excitement and thrills. Until then, though, stay safe, and we will see you on the track.